Hello, my lovely listeners, and welcome back to the Digital Queens podcast. I'm your host each and every week, Sarah Thompson, and today we are on episode 192. Now, today's episode, I actually was a little bit nervous about recording this episode. I would imagine most of you who have been listening to this podcast for a while will know I have a lot to say. I am very much a wind me up and I keep talking, and we have a bit of a rule, my husband and I, that podcast episodes should be between 20 and 30 minutes because I've polled you as my audience more than once and been told that that is the ideal listening length. We look at the data and we know that's what you like to listen to. So my job today is to get this podcast out to you in less than 30 minutes. And I have a lot to say. And so I'm quite nervous. And so I am going to be reading a wee bit to try and keep me on track and to stop me. I was going to say rambling, but probably ranting is a more correct description of what I am likely to do. Now, today I am going to be talking about a debate that is filling our news feeds. And I am only recording this a few days before it has gone live because it is very timely what is happening right now in the world of AI and in the world of big tech. And so, like, if you're like me, your feed is likely full of people making big declarations. I've cancelled my ChatGPT subscription. I'm leaving and I'm moving to Claude because they're unethical and blah, blah, blah. And there are all these big statements being made. And any of you who know me, IRLs, will know that I am very interested. It's probably more than a hobby. I'm very interested in international politics. I'm very interested in politics. And I think it would be fair to say I'm very consumed with American politics because we're living in crazy times. Wherever you sit on the political spectrum, what's going on right now is strange. And it's very interesting. I feel like we could be watching the fall of the world's most successful democracy and capitalist economy. So it's like we're living in kind of historical times. But I don't want to talk politics too much, but I will be talking politics as it is pivotal to this story. Okay, so if you're kind of wondering why have people thrown all their toys out the cot and said, I'm not working with ChatGPT or OpenAI, which is the parent company of ChatGPT, and why are we all moving to Claude, which comes from a company called Anthropic? So what I want to do today is I want to fill in all the blanks that you might have, and I'm going to fill in the blanks with my own knowledge, and I have also got both ChatGPT and Claude to help me support my answers with facts. Now, for those of you who are not across it and haven't looked at it, and many of us have run full tilt to ChatGPT, it is a fabulous AI tool. Many of us are very comfortable using it and we're very across how to use it. And so the thought of changing fills us with dread. Okay. And so you're kind of thinking, do I need to change? Like, what is going on that is so terrible? But there are a few things going on outside of the core story. And one of the things I want to say is that many people are going to Claude for reasons that are not simply about morals and ethics. I would say, because I use both platforms, I use ChatGPT from comfort. I've been using it for 3 years. I understand it. I have a lot of content in there, okay? But with Claude, I find its answers to be much more robust, much more in-depth, and if I'm honest, at a higher intellectual level than ChatGPT. I find the ChatGPT answers are like, explain to me like I'm 5. That's how I feel the answers come across. Whereas Claude is like, explain to me like I'm an intelligent adult. That's how I feel the difference is. And I'm going to give you the prompt that I gave both platforms. I'm going to give you my exact prompt, okay? Now, in the interest of transparency, I give prompts that always sound like me talking, that are very much my natural way of writing. They're not perfect sentences. So this is my statement that I gave to both platforms, and then I'm going to share with you the responses and I'm going to share with you the story. So I said, I want to do a podcast on the ChatGPT versus Claude debate. People are cancelling their paid ChatGPT account and migrating to Claude, citing moral objections. I want to give them the whole story. I want dates and I want references for this. Let's start with the Pete Hegseth public statement about Anthropic after Anthropic made a public statement about their primary concerns working with the US government. We then saw OpenAI step in and say, we will do whatever you want. And Sam Altman, who's the CEO of OpenAI, has also donated millions to Trump. So let's talk facts and figures on that. I then want to talk about all the big tech companies and what they have donated to Trump. And I said it's shocking, but no one's talking about closing their Facebook account because you can't run your business without it. This speaks into, these are my morals, but if they don't work for my business, I have none. I have big issues with Tim Cook, that's the CEO of Apple, who has for years been supportive of diverse communities and championed privacy, and how he has sold out to those values to buy into the Trump administration. I want an outline of the facts that I will then write the whole thing. I want facts that you source from reputable places. So that is the prompt that I gave both of those. Now, here's what's interesting. Some of the stuff that I put in there, like I said, Sam Altman has donated millions. That's just based on my broader picture. And I know that when I'm talking about that, I might be talking about Sam Altman personally, or I might be talking about OpenAI, the parent company of ChatGPT. All right. So I just want to be really clear. Some of my prompts are not correct. I'm just summarizing where we want to get to with the story. And I, as a human being, understand I'm kind of ad-libbing, but I want it to work out. What am I trying to infer and what am I trying to get to? And that's what is really, really, I think, the biggest difference in the response from ChatGPT to Claude is that Claude gets what I'm trying to, it's understanding my inferences, and underneath what I'm saying, there's another story. ChatGPT is very literal in its responses, and really interesting. ChatGPT was much quicker to generate its responses. And I want to read this to you. And remember, I'm not going to repeat this again. ChatGPT, the parent company of that is OpenAI, and the CEO for OpenAI is Sam Altman. Claude is owned by a company called Anthropic, and the Anthropic CEO is, and I'm just going to pause for a minute because I need to make sure I pronounce his name correctly. So Anthropic CEO is Dario Amodei. Okay, so we've got all of those names and everything locked away so that when I'm talking about them, I won't need to re-explain how they fit into the picture. Otherwise, I'm never going to make this in 30 minutes. This is my goal. So here is the first response that ChatGPT gave me as soon as it generated answer. Sarah, I'd like to start with one important correction before we build this episode. I can verify that Sam Altman did not donate millions to Trump personally based on the reporting I found. Reuters reported that Altman made a personal donation of $1 million to Trump's inaugural fund, which is the maximum any person can donate personally to a political party in America. It's significant, but it's not millions. And it's like, oh, calm down. Like, again, that's the first thing it decided to comment on, which I think is really interesting because it jumped to its company's defense. And what Claude did is it said, I've searched the web and I've put together rich, well-sourced materials, and here is your podcast outline. And it said, it gave me some suggested titles, and I've gone with the AI Battle for Supremacy, which was the genius of my own AI called my brain. So I've come up with that. And the suggestions it gave me were like, if these are my morals, I have none. Big Tech, Trump, and AI Ethics Trap. So that was kind of a very clever title, but maybe a bit too clever. And then it kind of talked about, it broke it down into segments like why people cancelling ChatGPT, what happened in the showdown with Pete Hegseth, why OpenAI compromised, or was it an opportunist? It gave me a beautiful outline that made really great sense. So a lot of what I'm going to quote today comes from the responses that Claude gave. Now, this is all really, really topical, okay? So people are saying that Anthropic has stood up to Trump while OpenAI has sold out. Okay, that's kind of the story. But I want to tell you what actually happened because there's a good timeline to it, and it kind of started a couple of years ago. So, and this Claude tells me is sourced from NPR, CBS News, Axios, and Gizmodo, which is a very reputable tech platform for news. So in June 2024, Anthropic was awarded a $200 million contract from the Pentagon in the US to develop AI capabilities that would advance national security, and was the first AI company cleared for classified networks. So we're talking almost 2 years ago now. And then this year, so February 24th, 2026, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth threatened to blacklist Anthropic from the US military over the company's refusal to loosen its safety standards. So there were two sticking points, okay? The first one is that the prohibitions on mass domestic surveillance, i.e. looking at people in America, and it didn't believe that was in the public interest, and fully autonomous weapons. So, and this is what's very interesting about the current administration in America is that we get to witness these conversations that in normal administrations would happen behind closed doors. We would not be privy to them, but because Trump puts everything on social media, he has taught all of his team to do the same. These private negotiations are now being done in the public sphere, and we actually get to know what is happening, which is, I guess, cool. And I guess we can say that's something good coming out of the Trump administration. So Pete Hegseth, who is the defense secretary for whatever it's called now, Department of War, he has said that we're going to cancel Anthropic's $200 million contract with the Department of Defense. And there was lots of big debate about what's going on. So Anthropic put out their own statement saying they were worried about mass surveillance of Americans and worried about fully autonomous weapons. They seem like very reasonable things to be concerned about. I am the generation that grew up with Terminator and Skynet, and I'm cool with weapons not being autonomous until we're really confident in that. And Anthropic said they didn't believe that technology was there yet. Okay, just to be clear, yet. So both of those statements are available publicly from Pete Hegseth and Anthropic if you do want to go and read those. So then Pete Hegseth fights back on X, formerly known as Twitter, saying that, and this is what he said, this is what's fascinating because this is how we conduct negotiations now. He said, Anthropic is delivering a masterclass in arrogance and betrayal. And their stance was, and I quote, cloaked in sanctimonious rhetoric of effective altruism, calling it a cowardly act of corporate virtual signaling that places Silicon Valley ideology above American lives. Oh, kind of bitchy. And again, this is a tweet, okay? I want to be really clear. This is in the public domain. And this is a very powerful man, the Secretary of Defense in America, saying this about the company who they are working with closely on automating weapons. Like, talk about slapping someone in the face. So then fast forward 4 days later, Trump bans Anthropic. He wrote on Truth Social, calling Anthropic an out-of-control radical left AI company. And he directed all federal agencies to immediately cease using this technology. Okay, so that is what has happened. Anthropic has said, we don't think it's right. And then we fast forward, like on that same day, so on the 28th of February, OpenAI announced that it had reached a deal with the US military. I mean, think about, like in Australia, if I want to tender for a government contract, the contract has to be published. It has to be published for a certain amount of time. People have to apply to receive that tender, like to apply for the tender. There is a tender review process, and then it is announced. Within 4 days, a $200 million contract was taken off one company and allocated to another with no public tender process, which I don't know about American law, but that would certainly not fly in Australia. So on the 28th of February, OpenAI announced it had reached a deal with the US military to use its technology in classified settings. And the CEO, Sam Altman, said negotiations with the company began pursuing after the public reprimand by the Pentagon of Anthropic, and he cited that it was definitely rushed. So Sam Altman said the process was rushed. Okay. Now, before this happened, I want to be really, really clear. Altman's position before the deal, like he sent a memo to his employees saying, we have long believed AI should not be used for mass surveillance or lethal weapons, and that humans should remain in the loop for high stakes automated decisions. These are our main red lines. Okay. That is a memo Sam Altman sent to internally on the same day that he announced that they were taking over that contract. So he's kind of not on board, but he's doing it anyway. So from most people's, the average consumer like you and I, what we have seen with all that is Anthropic are the good guys because they've said no to mass surveillance and no to fully automated weapons. And OpenAI have said, we'll take the money and we'll do whatever you want. But then behind closed doors, they also are holding the same line, which is really, really interesting. So people are kind of like, let's abandon ChatGPT, let's move to Anthropic because of this morality issue that is going on. But what is really, really interesting, and we're going to talk a wee bit about Sam Altman, is that like all of our big tech people, they all make donations like in the millions, as much as they can, to most sides of the political sphere. So let's talk Democrats and Republicans in America. Most of them make big donations because they're kind of like, whoever wins, we want to be in bed with them. That is the truth of the American political system. Okay, it is quite different in Australia. We have much stricter laws about political donations from individuals and from corporations. Okay, it's very different there. But what I want you to understand is that every big tech company donates to our politicians, okay? So this idea that OpenAI are evil because they've now jumped into bed with the Department of Defense and Anthropic are the moral high ground doesn't quite sit with me, because that administration are using bullying tactics to make companies comply with their will, which is not really how business is done, whether it's business to business or if you're delivering a product through a tender to a government, okay? That is not the normal way in which any of us do business, and most of us should realize that. But here's what I want you to understand. Most of them, like I said, let's talk Google, which is Alphabet is the parent company, Microsoft, Meta, Amazon, Apple, Uber, all of them donate, okay? And they donate more. And this is what's been really, really interesting. So again, talking American politics, the ballroom that is being built next to the White House where they demolished the East Wing is Trump's big grandeur dream that he wants. That's going to cost somewhere between 400 and 800 million, depending on what day it is for Trump to quote the price. And he is saying that is privately funded. Now, what he means by that is he is taking millions in donations from these companies. So Amazon, which is Google, Alphabet, which is Google, Amazon, Apple, Microsoft, Meta, OpenAI, Anthropic have all donated to the White House ballroom. Okay, they have all made donations in the millions. Okay, so the question is, if we are making a donation, what do I get from that? Okay, so here's some of the things that have happened post sort of donations. Sam Altman is obviously working on the Stargate project that I don't have time to talk about that, but go and Google it. It is a billions of dollar project where they're collaborating with the government to build AI infrastructure outside of that Department of Defense contract. Google secured with their donation the ability to live stream the inauguration on YouTube. Apple has secured tariff exemptions on semiconductors. Meta got a president who praised their rollback of fact checking. Okay, that's what those donations allowed those big tech companies to do. Okay, so here's what I really want to say to you. Cancelling your ChatGPT subscription is what I would call selective outrage. Okay, and it is selective outrage because we have a choice. Okay, I for a long time have thought big tech companies A, have too much power, and B, operate outside of the law with moral impunity. Okay, and it's not okay. These billionaires, we're not even going to talk Epstein and what billionaires have done in those files, but what I want to say is they operate outside of the rules that you and I operate in. Okay, and their huge donations that they give have allowed them to get some concessions, tax breaks, to secure government programs and contracts. So let's just call them what they are. They're bribes, all right? I will grease your wheels and you will give me what I want, okay? I'm pretty sure that's called a bribe. So that sort of selective moral outrage that we're having over OpenAI and then working with the Department of Defense irritates me. And the reason it irritates me is because if we want to dive into this outrage, let's go all in. But the reason we're not doing that is because we cannot, okay? As a business owner, we cannot go, I'm not using Meta. I think they're morally bankrupt. I think Mark Zuckerberg is morally bankrupt. But I acknowledge that I have to use that platform to run my business. I need Meta ads. I need Facebook groups. I need my Instagram. I need Threads. I need those things to run my business. And so I sit silent on the side and go, I have to suck this up. It's really, really hard. And this is why this outrage has kind of struck a chord with me. Now, I want to talk about Tim Cook, okay? Because anyone who knows me knows that I am such an Apple girl. I have everything Apple in my life. I have, we call it the Big Mac in my desk. So I have a Big Mac and I have my little my baby Mac laptop. I have an Apple phone. I have my earbuds. I am all in on that ecosystem. And one of the reasons I have liked Apple for a long time is because of Tim Cook, who is the CEO of Apple. So Tim Cook, just if you're not aware of who he is, in 2014, he became the first and only CEO of a Fortune 500 company to publicly come out as gay. Okay, that's over 10 years ago now. And he said this, and I'm going to quote, "I am proud to be gay and I consider being gay amongst the greatest gifts God has given me." So very out. For a huge, like years and years and years, he has spoken so profoundly about the importance of LGBTQIA plus rights. He spoke so much against the anti-transgender bathroom bills, saying it was a license to discriminate. He has been incredibly vocal and an advocate for people who need advocacy. Now, layer on top of that, from a business perspective, Tim Cook is the one who pushed companies like Meta to declare why and how they are tracking us. So they brought out an iOS update that forced all apps when they updated to declare if they were going to track you, and you could, if you were on an Apple device, you could opt out of app tracking. So it's called app tracking transparency, ATT. Okay. Now, when that happened, I was like, brilliant. I was all over that because I'm a Meta ads girl. I understand tracking, and I'm probably more cognizant of it than other people. And so what Tim Cook did is said, it's not acceptable for people to be tracked and their data used without them having opted into that. Now, I think that was a milestone moment in big tech's kind of how they reported to us, and I feel like it was significant and important. Okay, so I'm Tim Cook Apple all the way up until very recently, and I feel quite betrayed personally by Tim Cook, who has jumped on the Trump bandwagon. Like everybody, they donate to them both. But what we have seen is that he sat at the inauguration alongside Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg, and Jeff Bezos in the Billionaire Boy Club. He has visited the White House multiple times. He's made Apple gifts to the president. He has pledged to Donald Trump an additional, when I say additional, this is on top of an additional 100 billion in US manufacturing. And this is sort of sits alongside all those Trump craziness, bringing Apple's total commitment to 600 billion. And in return, Apple secured a covered exemption from Trump's new semiconductor tariffs. So you think about that. You scratch my back, I scratch yours. So I feel like Tim Cook has really sold out to someone who is in direct contradiction to everything he stood for. And I feel like he has, and I feel this personally, I feel like he has sold us out. We have all been so loyal to his company because we thought he cared about us, and we thought he cared about the rights of people who are marginalized, and we thought he cared about our privacy. And what he has now done is he has shown his hand and said, actually, I just care about getting rich, and I care about my company getting richer. And I find that incredibly disappointing. And I want to just say, this has been a really hard pill for me, because what do I do now? Do I change everything that I own from Apple to Android, or, whatever different computers, because they're all big tech companies? And so what I made a decision to do earlier this year, and I know it's only March, so it's still early in the year, but I made a decision that I was not going to buy any new Apple products. So whatever Apple product I had to then last. And you know what happens when you tell the universe that you're going to do something? It tests you. So I normally get a new phone every 2 years, and my phone was due in February, and I haven't got a new phone. I just decided we're not doing that. Okay, so that was easy. That was an easy decision. I can just delay it for another year or two, and then I can kind of cross that bridge down the track. So I've just deferred a decision. And then 5 minutes later, my AirPods died. I've had them serviced. They're 5 years old. And I need those for work. I use them online. I use them for consulting. They are probably one of my core tools. And I was kind of salty because now I have to make a decision. I have to put my money where my mouth is. And the truth of it is, Apple is beautiful as an ecosystem. Like, I can sit in my office and I can be on my phone. I can switch to my big Mac. I can switch to my baby Mac, and it all just works beautifully and seamlessly. And I do love that about Apple. So now I have to decide, am I going to stick with what I said and not buy new Apple products? What am I going to do? And you'll love this. I actually Googled, how can I buy AirPods where the least profit goes to Apple? That's what I actually Googled. And the answer, if you're wondering, is you buy it from a big box retailer. So we're talking Costco, JB Hi-Fi. And so I went to Costco and I waited for them to be on sale, and I bought myself a new pair. And I actually didn't buy the AirPod Pros, which I've had previously, because they're like $500, and I just bought the AirPod 4, which was like under $300, because that's less money that I'm giving to that company. So I made considered choices on how much I was prepared to give them. But it's hard. And I want to acknowledge that it's really hard because all of these companies are aligning themselves with an administration that is in complete contradiction to my values. Okay. So what do I do? Do I stop using Amazon? Do I stop using all of the Meta platforms? Do I stop using, at what point do I have to draw the line? Because, and I said this jokingly in my, this morning I had an Ask Me Anything session in one of my memberships. And I said, if I was to stop using all the technology because the CEOs had morals and ethics in contradiction to my own, we would be sitting around a campfire having this conversation, because all technology, the people behind it, many of them do not live the same morals and values that you and I live. Okay. So that is the full story. And I do want to just share, because I've read a few of those statistics because I wanted to get them correct for you. ChatGPT's response was so rubbish. And then it said here, I'd like you to frame your conclusion like this. And I'm going to read this as a direct quote for you. This is not a story about one clean, ethical AI company versus one compromised one. It is a story about how AI companies, tech CEOs, and big platforms are all negotiating power, access, profit, and political survival. If we're going to make moral choices as users, we need to do it with our eyes open and with consistency. And I was like, oh, geez, that's a great statement. Imagine if I said that. Sounds super smart. Look at me. And then underneath, because I told both of them they had to reference stuff, that is a direct quote from Dario Amodei. Okay. And it's from a statement he made on his discussions with the Department of War. So well done, chat. You gave me a great quote, but it wasn't your own. So that is really, really interesting. So look at me, 27 minutes. I hope you have learned something today. And I hope that you will consider your choices between ChatGPT and Claude. And I hope that you are now able to make a more considered decision based on more information than I'm leaving because they're morally bankrupt. Okay, so I hope that that will help you understand the fuller picture. What I would say to you is that if you see something on social media and you're like, oh, that's super interesting, be inquiring and go and look it up online and go and ask and find some reputable sources. So I know where I get my news from, and I'm very confident that they are reliable sources of information. Okay. So I would encourage you to find out where you're getting your information from, if it is independent and if it will give you the answers that you need. But be inquiring and don't just settle for Sarah said, so she must be right. I mean, I am, but be inquiring and challenge why people are doing what they're doing, and make sure you understand the full picture, because the world that we live in now is incredibly complex and it's incredibly chaotic. The news cycle is super fast and it is hard to keep up with information. So I'm hoping that in a few days' time when this comes out, it is still relevant. If it's not, I'm going to have to re-record it. But I hope that this gives you some clarity around the AI companies, around tech companies, and what is going on in that bigger picture. So I hope you've enjoyed today. I hope you've learned something. Thank you for indulging my worldview, because I appreciate that I sit quite left of a lot of politics, and I'm okay with that. And that I walk every day in a space of compromise because I have to use platforms that I fundamentally disagree with. But that is how we build our business, unfortunately. So thank you for listening to my news. Thank you for tuning in as always. I so appreciate you. If you want to continue this conversation, DM me on Insta. I will chat all day about this, and I won't limit it to 30 minutes, I promise. And as always, I will catch you the same time next week on the Digital Queens podcast.